Today is the Miyazaki artist study. I've got my red acetate on hand for value. I got my Miyazaki paper. It was really hard figuring out how to approach this because there's so much stuff. And so I had to like constrain it. I think I'm going to constrain it to only his watercolor stuff. And these two books plus Ursa sent me a bunch of photos. Some of the pictures Ursa sent me are the ones down here in the little slideshow. But I think I'm gonna start by doing little painted thumbnails because I'm interested in his use of warm and cool. So I'm just gonna randomly pick some. First thing I notice that I like is the rounded panel borders. It's a pain to draw when you're doing your pages, but it looks really good. I would not have noticed the rounded corners, but they do look really nice. Yeah, I hadn't noticed the rounded corners when I read this, but now going, of course, drawing it, you notice all the things that you don't usually see. So I'm going to keep these color studies pretty simple. I'm mostly interested in the use of warm versus cool, and how I guess storytelling is probably the thing to be thinking about. Although, like with most of these, might end up discovering that there's some extra other thing to think about that I hadn't even noticed. So in doing a little bit of preliminary research for this, I learned Miyazaki's tools. He was selling sets of his tools, like with watercolors, and it came with like a pencil and a watercolors. And the thing that was nice for me is that he uses the same brand that I get here, which is Holbein. So I felt validated with that. And one thing that I like is that his pencils, they're both clean and dynamic at the same time. There's a good gesture to them, but they're also very clean. Just thinking about shapes mainly. I'm not going to get caught up in the details of these little ones. Warm this figure up a little bit. Also, I forgot to mention, with all of these artist studies, if anybody has any input, please do participate, because that's one of the good things is that we kind of go through these together. I'll do this one down here. I like this framing. Foreground here. It's also interesting how these are arranged on the page here. Like this one, like some of these are fully framed out like that, and then some of them are butted up against the edge. I wonder what the reason is. I wonder if it's just to fit the text, or if there's some storytelling reason. Like maybe this moment is dramatic, and so it's sort of, you pull back from it and you see it framed like that. I'm gonna think about that. And that goes to those rounded corners. And these are square. Maybe that'll be the indicator. Just try to keep that in the back of my mind as I go along. It's interesting to me how these little flecks of red will show up. We have a little bit of red here holding on to the hat. And this hat here. We get the shirt, this guy, and then the background. I guess that's meant to pop these figures, but I wonder if it's also meant to move the eye. So this is another thing. So this is red right to left, not left to right. And so we would come in here. I guess we would read this first, go up to the figure. There's this diagonal of the gun. So I guess we come down here. And then maybe we're meant to... I wonder. Or maybe we're meant to look at the figure first and come through this kind of semi-tangent, connecting these into here, up through the reds and down the text. Yeah, maybe that looks more likely. We come in, start here, come through. This swoops us down to the text. We come down to this hanging light fixture, into the figure down here. Maybe this red hops us here, hops us here, hops us here, and then we're at the text again. I'm gonna go with that. That's my working theory, at least. Like that greenish blue under the light fixture. Yeah, and that is popping out this figure here. So this figure is kind of this orange yellow, and then the foreground figures are a darker version of that. Oh, sorry, Diatom, that's right. My working hypothesis. It's not been accepted by my peers yet. Once enough people in chat agree, then it becomes a working theory, right? So far in the first two, he's working with basically 3 colors. That's a cool framing character. A little bit here too. The foreground is darker but effective. Yeah, the foreground is creating kind of a vignette. I want to darken it up a little bit more, actually. These figures here, it's like a circle around the main character, Shuna, I guess. We have this dark ring here. Everybody is looking, or we assume the figures whose backs are to us, but we can see these figures here. Everybody's looking at Shuna. So all the figures are looking at Shuna, and there's a dark ring in the foreground, and this is a little darker too. And then we have this cool blue background with the warm orange of the figure popping it. So there's definitely our focal point. And basically just 3 colors. The 3 colors here, 3 colors here. This is, this one is interesting. This is also 3, kind of 3. This is a warm, then this is more cool than just this like white. But I don't think I need to draw that one. I mean, I probably should, but there's no time. There's a lot of stuff to look at. Could write an essay on the composition of this page from the book. Probably every page can write an essay on, right? I don't know. Do you guys agree? My assessment of the composition, that it comes here, down here. I don't know if it's red to the text, or maybe it is eyeline. Oh, there's a good one, Crochet. Yeah, let's do this flip. And so once again, this is manga style. So this is done right to left rather than left to right. But yeah, let's flip this and see what we can see. Oh, now that's interesting. Let me try to read this a Western way. Yeah, so now I'm seeing it differently now, looking at it on screen here. Yeah, looking at this way now, I think I might come in here and then go to the figure, come down to the text block, and then maybe back through, and then up to this page. Yeah, the flipped is it's a very different feel, isn't it? Not the same meaning for the top image. Yeah, that's totally true. The top image here, at least to my Western eyes, right? Top image here is looking off, but like this. Yeah, this is less wistful to me, more purposeful maybe. This one seems somehow sadder, but I feel like for the story, the more kind of melancholy way would be appropriate. And so maybe it's just that we're used to reading things the other way around, and so I wonder if a manga reader or a Japanese person saw it, if they would feel like I feel when I look at it this way, when they look at it this way. Very interesting. Also want to look diagonally across the planes in the same way, which completely misses key features. Yeah, for comic book pages, or this is sort of semi-comic book page, moving the eye around the page, like through the page in a storytelling way, is very important, and moving you from text block to text block, but also from focal point to focal point. Those are important things for the composition, the layout, and the use of color, the use of eye direction, things like that. These diagonals are important for that. This framing, like I said before here. Reminiscence versus watching the... Yeah, that's exactly the breakdown. Exactly. Reminiscence versus watching the future. It's a good way of putting it. I think we've dissected this page pretty well, unless anybody else has anything to add on that. Let's see what... I haven't really pre-selected any panels to look at. I think they're going to be probably mostly right-hand panels. this one, just for the sake of ease of doing this. Interesting, putting a person looking far away in the middle of the frame instead of at the side would give a more looking out of the frame. Yeah, I think here this emphasizes the loneliness, right? Like the kind of isolation. Just surrounded by all of this on all sides. That would be my reading of it anyway. By The Art of Nausicaa. Yeah, this is a great book. I got really lucky. I found this in my local bookstore. It's got a lot. It has frames, and it has character designs and kind of concept stuff. These. But it's a really wonderful book. Look at that. And a lot of the early concept stuff that looks nothing like the finished thing. More about the person's isolation than what they are looking at. Yeah, or what they're looking to. So it reminds me of 80s action cartoons. Yeah, I think this book is from the 80s. I think this was originally published right before Studio Ghibli. It says Ghibli was founded in 85. I think this was done, 1983, I think. This one here. This is definitely, this is simple, straightforward storytelling. Oh. All right, good. So, once again, as I say every time, drawing it really, really helps you see. So I hadn't noticed before, but this is a frame, right? So this is actually, this page is a comic book page with 2 panels. We have a panel here, and then we have a panel here. And the panel borders are our storytelling device. So there's no opportunity wasted. Make this a little bigger. That's an interesting move. The de facto panel borders are these broken down wooden parts. Oh, it's signed here, 1983 as well, so that's, there we have it. This kind of fish scale armor. It's interesting. This is a castle with a wooden shell that's just been destroyed around it. So something happened to this place. Get the full shot here. Oh, it's a ship. It's a ship that's got stone on the inside. You mean you're surprised that they reprinted this in English? I wonder when this was reprinted. This is done by First Second, which is a pretty good company. This was printed... This is from 2022. Yeah, this is pretty recent. So here, the warmest part. It seems like he's working with like a major warm, a minor warm, and a cool. Or in some cases, a major cool, a minor cool, and a warm. So like from the first 2 here, it's like 3 color. Essentially, even though, you know, there's more subtle variation, but it's essentially 3 colors. And this one is the same. And so this is pretty clear storytelling. Line of sight here. Something's going on in there. And here we have it. And I was noticing, at least early on, the values are pretty muted. There's not a lot of contrast in value. But here there's quite a bit. And I think... Got my trusty cellophane. Yeah, that's a really high contrast there. Like this one is almost the same value the entire page. The only thing on this page that is really standing out is that like these are so close, and the figure is almost lost. The animal, forget what they're called. The animal he's riding is completely lost, but here it's really, really clear. Everything pops. I wonder if there's a purpose for that. Because you would think that this dark would be against maybe a lighter spot. But again, you know what? I forgot. Again, there's this red. That is the hat. Good to put a red hat on your character. Clever trick. Yeah, it's from Crochet. Crochet suggested it. It's the equivalent to the desaturation layer, like in Clip Studio. If you add a layer that takes out all the saturation, you're just left with the value. Gotta get some red acetate. Yeah, all of a sudden the red acetate emporium, ever since Crochet mentioned it, has been flooded with an unusual amount of orders for single sheet. Posture of the reindeer thing is strange, like it's standing at attention or dog pointing. Yeah, you're right, it is. Interesting posture. It's almost, its axis is kind of at a diagonal. And this figure is vertical straight underneath the window. So I guess we have like this kind of moving, holding the composition, especially this, holding the composition so the eye kind of stays off of this corner. I wonder if the sort of axis of this creature is maybe intended to do that as well, to bring us around. If you squint the eyes, there's more reds and browns in the bottom of the image and blues higher up with the yellow focal point. Yeah, that's right. So I think the major warm is this, the minor warm is this, and then the cool is the rest of it. And I think the reds would be accents. It's interesting, the text in these clouds here. And I assume that the original Japanese would have been placed the same. I don't see any reason why they would change that, but I could be wrong. Here's another one with a window. So this is another one that is a bleed up against the edge of the page. So trying to see if there's a reason, if there's a pattern for which ones are framed on all sides and which ones are butted up against. The rounded corner here. And this is an interesting tangent here. So always, with all of these artist studies, it's always, it seems evident that these artists are doing everything intentionally. I wonder what is the purpose of that tangent. It's interesting, the axis here and the axis here. I wonder if it's supposed to create an obstruction of some kind. And then these clouds are important. So here I think we definitely read the text. We come through. I think we're supposed to come down into the horns here. We come in through here. Maybe this is just to stop us from drifting over to this page. Kind of a redirect. Balance things out. I think we come down through the horns, through this movement, and up here to the text. And then I guess across to this text and back up here. And then they're looking off. We turn the page. I love the contrast of the diagonals in this panel. Yeah. Everything to use green in the clouds, but it looks cool. Yeah, it's interesting with the color of like sky and the color of clouds. You can always use that as a storytelling thing. Like the sky doesn't have to be blue. If you make the sky red, that changes. Like that tells something about what's going on. Or if you make the sky a sickly green, or you make it make it a purple or something. Again with the red, storm clouds always have hints of blue, purple, and green. The tangent is to mess with people studying it. Yes, in 1983, Miyazaki knew someday there will be an internet. People will study art. I'm going to throw this tangent in. I mean, it's not precisely... there's a little bit of overlap with the ear, but the frill here definitely... I mean, it could be to create tension. It could be to imply that there's like an obstruction, right? Because on the next page, we have this even bigger this chasm, right? This is like an inverted version of that. This is a downward obstruction, and this is a jutting up thing. So maybe it's to create that, or maybe it's just to create a focal point. Because oftentimes when we have lines kind of converging, right? We have the lines of the clouds converging here. It doesn't even look like storm clouds. It looks otherworldly. Maybe a dust storm. Yeah. Yeah, there's something just uncomfortable. Although in the night scene, the stars are all out. So maybe this represents what they're fleeing. Because there's people chasing them in this part, right? These guys here. So maybe those clouds represent this. They're kicking up a lot of dust. So maybe that's a visual reminder that they're being pursued. Always wondered how conscious great artists are of those things. Like, did Miyazaki sit down and think about how a tangent there could signify tension between the ruined old and the surviving young or something? Did it just happen subconsciously? I'm guessing probably a little bit of both. I think... Well, and I don't know. I was thinking about this earlier before I started, like, choosing this book. I chose this book because it's what I have. And so this would be relatively young Miyazaki, earlier in his career. And so maybe... I feel like, at least for me, I feel like when I was younger, I did more stuff subconsciously because I had to focus more on certain things, certain like just general skills, like figuring out, perspective or figure proportion and stuff like that. And it's hard to juggle all those things. And then I feel like as an artist gets more accomplished, those things become more, more conscious or more purposeful. And that's what makes them, greater and greater, is that the ability to think about that. So I'm not sure this point in Miyazaki's career, but I don't know. I think looking for tangents is I don't know. I feel like it's pretty important, but it's also something that everybody misses. It's really difficult to see all your own tangents in your own work. But I was thinking, like, when we did the Muka study a couple months ago, everything that Muka did seemed intentional. And so I used to think that those things would be, like post hoc, like you find them after the fact and you ascribe some kind of meaning to it. And I'm sure there's plenty of that as well. But the more I look at these artists, the more I think so much of what they're doing, at least when they're working at a really high level like this, would be intentional. But I don't know. Because I would, if somebody told me that I heard that he said he just did it accidentally, I would believe that. This is interesting. We have this pattern. The shadow comes in, and then this one juts into that kind of negative space, and then this one juts into this negative space, and this one juts into this negative space. We get kind of like a this rhythm going. Footprints back here. I don't know. For me, this would be something that I would think about if I was drawing this. I would do thumbnails like this, not in color necessarily, but I would do thumbnails and I would try to compose it, and then try to. If the tangent was an accident, I would hope I would notice it. I mean, it's pretty major, right? I would hope I would notice it and do something about it. But if I wanted it there, I would put it there. If that makes sense. The first Nausicaa manga released when he was in his early 40s, really? Interesting. How old is he now? There's a good question. Yeah, because this Shuna's journey was just over 40 years ago. I know for a fact he was so picky that when others would do panels, he would stay at the studio all night fixing them all by himself because they had to be perfect. He has been so obsessed that even his son says he was a terrible father, creator, producer of these movies. Yeah, I thought he was pretty obsessive about things and pretty kind of a perfectionist. And that's another good point. Like, if he was such a perfectionist, either he would have done this on purpose or this would haunt him. He would have fixed it in the reprint. He's 83. So yeah, I guess this was done when he was, I guess, early 40s. All right. So it's time for me to make something on this level now. The next stream is going to be the one where I break all of my drawing tools. So tune in for that, everybody. Next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Taiwan time. 10 p.m. Monday night in the Americas. Getting better at recognizing rhythm in my work, like how to lead the reader's eye through panels and pages. But symbolism, that's a whole nother level of knowledge. I think, Tiny Dragon, part of it is experience and repetition. And part of it is probably study. Like that Dr. Seuss study, for example. The first artist study we did. After looking at Dr. Seuss's use of the rhythm of his shapes in like his foliage and stuff, like he has all these shapes and they're similar, but each one is slightly different. And now whenever I do shape design, I always have that in my head, and it's something I never really paid much attention to before that study. And it's now like it's salient. Whenever I'm drawing, I think, man, Dr. Seuss would have done it like this. He wouldn't have made these two exactly the same shape. So I think that's a large part of it. The fact that it's just slightly this way just makes it look even more daunting, more intimidating. Like that, you usually think it might be more like this. Nope. So we were looking at water last stream at Becky Clunan, maybe. So good. It's just this. And this is not a water study stream, but I'm tempted. It's so good. And so simple, too. Just some round blobs with the white. You know what? Do it. This looks like it's 3. There's a white, there's a light blue, and a dark blue. This light blue. It's this little fringe here of the white. So only the froth is actually white, and then the between parts are light blue. You're quite curious now about this paper? This is the exact paper that he used. Apparently, according to the internet, this is the paper that they use at Studio Ghibli, and he did all of his work on. 207 GSM. It's quite heavy crochet. It's last stream I was using it and I was it was a bit tough, but actually the more I use it, of course, the easier it becomes. But it's not so good for wet on wet. The less water, I think, the better. And this paper, I got it from a local stationery store in Taiwan, but I think you can get it on Japanese Amazon. I think it's amazon.jp or something. Like this is a little darker here, and then we got these circle bits. This is one of those things where really keeping in mind the positive and negative shapes is important. So difficult to do. So some of them are going this way and some of them are going this way. I wonder if the axis of these circles is important. It is considered, or if it's just randomized. Some of these are softer edged too. Maybe I should have done this when it was still wet. Probably scale is relevant. That water would be very hard to do on a small scale. Like the scale I'm doing it at. I wonder how big these original paintings were. That would be a thing to have tried to figure out before this stream. I wonder if this is actual size, or if he was doing it 2 up or something. Well, that's my attempt at the Miyazaki water. I think, actually, you know what? I can probably go... Oh, yeah, you know what? I thought it was 3 values, but it's 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there is a 4th. All right, good. That might explain some of that. At least 1.5 up. Yeah, probably. Maybe this is this. There's a little bit of warm red here. It's interesting. In all the panels, right? He has his red hat as a kind of important moment. And in this one, he's completely just kind of grayed out. Oh, wow. And look at this. We have the shape of the figure, and then we have another shape that's similar color, kind of mirroring. And then we have this blue here. It's kind of nice. This kind of rhythm. This is roughly the same size, I think, right? More or less. Also, the again using his gun, his knife, or whatever, as a directional device from the text. So I guess either we read this and then we come down here, or we look at all this stuff and then we go up to the text, one way or the other. These marks look like they were put in quickly, so maybe I should be less deliberate and more fast with it. Maybe not. Maybe my brush is too pointy. Again, blame the tools. Always blame the tools. Never the artist. Always the art materials. I don't know about this. I gotta think more about how to do this. But this is a good start. It's deceptive, right? It looks amazing, but it also looks pretty simple, and yet there's something to this. Gotta do I've got to use my channel points to redeem a water study stream. That's gotta be. I gotta do that. How many channel points do I have, Crochet? Do you know? Like this effect. I love this effect. The half submerged. Get this like it's like an island, and you really can see the topography of the hand. How the water moves in and out. Tricky stuff. Okay. Else from here. Get the red cellophane out and look at this page. This is all dark except that there's a couple of sunbeams and then the figure down here. You asked original illustration format. I did, yeah. Generally B4. Oh, interesting. Okay. 26 by 36 centimeters. 26 about. Yeah, so that's just 36 feet. Yeah, yeah, slightly bigger than this page. So the width would be to my fingers over here, and the height be, what is this? Just about 30. The height would be probably. Thank you for that info. Around 10 by 14 inches. That is good to know. And that would be 2 up from here. This is 15 by 21 and a half. 21, there's 42. So yeah, maybe 1.5 up. I love the body language here. It's really subtle, not high contrast at all. In this one, I think it's the foreground and the background that is difference. And it looks like, let's see. Looks like the foreground be like that. The background is here, but then we have these dinosaurs or whatever lit up, more of the foreground value. Just kind of almost one of those Andrew Loomis L-shape compositions. Reverse L-shape rather. Here and across. Reinforced by the gesture of the figure too. And not super high I guess this is higher contrast than the other one. And so this is another fully zoomed out. No, not butting up against the edge at all. I had no idea how I was going to approach Miyazaki, even this morning. And I think these thumbnail studies is the way to go. At least for what I want to gain. I think part of doing an artist study is identifying something to focus on. And Miyazaki has so much work and such a vast library of stuff. It looks like his head is right in the, more or less in the center. And this one has a pretty clear foreground, middle ground, background. It's corners are a little bit less rounded. Wonder if that's supposed to communicate something. Look at this nice vignette. He does a lot of this. He did it in this one here, and in this one here, and kind of in the first one as well. It's kind of swoop, foreground, or these little spots of red. See how that affects the movement around the composition. Always the hat. And these like fruit or flowers or whatever, these mushrooms here. So the figure, the warmest part, aside from those red flecks. Those red flecks would be the truly warmest part. I guess they're more orange. Whatever you want to call them. And so again, I guess this would be we have like the major warm, and then we have the minor warm, and then we have the cool surrounding it. Just a little bit of the green coming down here. So I guess again with this, we have the text here, we have the diagonal of the gun, which would lead the eye down, and then we have this like invitation to enter the next panel. We have the poking down of the green, but we also have like this open shape. It's open light shape. So that brings us down here. I guess we come to the hand. Comes across. Maybe the concerned face. And the red brings us up into the text. I'm going to go with that for this page. Then actually consider that comic books and the images direct your eyes like that. Yeah, definitely. One of the important things when making a comic is thinking about how the eye moves around the page. It's extremely important. And if you look at like professional comics and stuff, you can definitely see that the whole pages are constructed to bring you around. This how he's framed. We have the red hat framed against the green figure here. Another one for the cellophane. The glow on the right-hand page. That white really is glowing. And then we have, oh man. Try to hold all this up. We have this figure, fairly dark, framed against this big open light shape. And I guess what this is the foreground. Yeah, the foreground here, this light bit. And then the midground would be that, I guess. In the background back here. This, again, he's using the clouds to great effect too, right? The shape of it. Like a frame. Maybe we come in, we come down, come across, then over the text. Also, the different body language of each figure. I've been reading a lot of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant, and just noticing that every single figure in every single panel is doing something, and it's all different. That's a hard thing to incorporate when you're trying to think about so many other things as well, but he does it really well. Each like no two figures are the same. They're all doing their thing. They're all different angles. And it's interesting too. We have this very flat horizon, very horizontal, and this very vertical form here, but then these figures got all these different diagonal axes of the figures. I wonder if that was intended to reinforce the movement of the figures by the kind of relative stability and stillness of this landscape. Hayao Miyazaki is a love of the sky, judging by how he draws it and animates it. Yeah, for sure. We're looking at it we did these thumbnails, and it's like green clouds and stuff. Hey, you know what? This water, now that it's dry, I'm not so down on it. I think it came out not like you know what? It's because I'm not looking at Miyazaki's next to it. Oh, wow. This one here, he's got kind of a blue aura, like a frame, and almost like a force field, maybe. Look at this water. Gonna have to remember this book when we do that water study stream. This one is also fully framed, maybe more cinematically. Oh yeah, I wanted to point out actually this aura here. I was noticing it. I was looking at, let me see, and he's got kind of a aura. We're so slight around him here. I think there's no outline on this. I think he paints right up to the edge, and then he goes in with the hatching. And I think he paints two blues in the background. But look at that one later if there's time. All his skies, yeah, they really are. Just and simple too. Even here, cover. We have another vignette at the bottom. Ground at the whatever the grain. Let's see, his head is just off center at the contrapposto running form. His hat's flying off. I just noticed that. Good use of the flowing drapery on his outfit and the hat flying off here. Another figure here that almost merges into this grain, and his hat should be a little further over. Yakul, the best red elk from Princess Mononoke, is partially based on Lechwe antelope. Is that the same creature as this? Is that Yakul? Yeah, this is a Yakul. Is that a real? That can't. I never heard of it before. Is that a made up animal? I guess it is. It's based on an antelope, right? I'd have seen him actually create one of these from start to finish. Yeah, Crochet, if only Twitch had existed in 1983 and Miyazaki was doing these. Yeah, I would love to have known his thought process. Because, like, these studies, of course, it's all... Like Tiny Dragon was kind of saying earlier, we don't really know what was intentional and what wasn't. It's informed speculation. Trying to reverse engineer some of this. Like, it's interesting that the hand is sort of intangent, almost intangent with the top of the frame here. Cuts it off right, looks right where the fingers are bending. I wonder if there's a reason for that, or if that just happens to be like he drew it in and he's like, ah. Sometimes that does happen too. Get these flying bits of debris. I wonder how much he took out of this Shuna's journey and put into his animations. This was right before Studio Ghibli was founded, so he's kind of grouped in with this foreground swoop, but with that blue frame around him. And the direction of the hatching here even is really dynamic. Looks like the ground is being pulled up. Let me get the inverse. Oh, interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. The top and the bottom of this are kind of inverse of one another. Dark vignette here. This like kind of dark brown. This one here. And again, it's a circle around our focal point, around our main figure. We had it here, we had it here, had it here, got it here. That's I'm gonna go ahead and say that we've uncovered a trope, at least in Shuna's journey. I don't know if it's a Miyazaki trope full on, but in this story at least, the circular framing of the main character. Most of the blues so far have been really maybe cooler, maybe grayer. With this paper, from the limited observation I've had, I want to say Miyazaki had to be a very patient person. See many layers that would likely require a lot of pauses unless he was a dedicated troller. Yeah, he does say in that sheet that I posted in the Discord that he did. He does say you have to wait for the paint to dry. And this describes his painting process and the tools and stuff. But over here, when layering, wait until the base layer dries. If you pile on color when it's wet. I guess this is a lament. He does that a lot in his work. I remember a lot of time in Hal and Ponyo. He does it also. The circular framing compositionally. I probably should be a little bit more patient with these, but I'm trying to go kind of quick. I don't want to sit around waiting for paint to dry. The nice thing about this paper actually is that it does dry pretty fast. It's really smooth. It's not soaking in. A lot of the paint kind of sits on the surface, so it dries a bit faster than like the arch is rough. Framing, like the panel within the page, all the important stuff is happening in here. It's an arrow, I guess, pointing us this way. And then we have the light background, and we have our figures dark against it. Although it's interesting that the Yakul, the animal, is similar value to the background. A lot of fairly muted. I guess this is a certain point in the story where the action is done, at least the physical action. We get to this sort of I don't know, more muted feelings. Very interesting here, almost monochromatic. This again, this is similar to that first page here. At this like triangle framed by the ground and the sky, almost silhouettes. I love that orange against the green. It's a good combination. And here the convenient, like the deliberate placing of the cloud so that we get a nice framing. Here again, the clouds. And a nice frame of the head there. Of the shades of green depending on where patches of sunlight hits the ground. Like the darker zones and the lighter zones. It's nice rhythm going through. And even the direction of his brushstrokes here. Kind of reinforcing the pencil line for the grass. It's another one. The triangle here. Got this kind of foreground, the background framing. Maybe that's another trope. He uses this like 1/3 of the page, just the ground. And quite a few of these. There was another one, yeah, here. Maybe not quite 1/3 of the page on this one, but substantial chunk. Yeah, this is a similar kind of example. And a nice, kind of the opposite of that cloud framing, the inverse at least. Using the clouds on either side with a figure in the middle. There will be a Totoro in my Shuna's Journey study page. I feel like I could do, a whole sketchbook of these thumbnails. I like that image has Miyazaki saying, "This palette is a lazy palette." Oh yeah, he always is poking a lot of fun at himself. Where does he say it? Oh, somewhere. I like this. I understand your messy writing. Clean his palette. Oh, here it is. This palette is a lazy palette right there. So, dark shape here. So the foreground is this green shape and the figures. And then everything else is background. So the figures are warm. And the moon. Everything else is cool. And that was the thing I really wanted to look at the beginning of this stream. Was his use of warm and cool and limited sort of zones. And I feel like that worked out. I did a lot more blabbing and a lot less painting than I thought I was going to do. But I feel like it was all worthwhile. Yeah, this worked out. You know what? This worked out more than I thought at the time. These thumbnails also are very instructive, at least to me. I think there's a lot of value to breaking down simply these compositions. And I hope you all agree. But if you don't, I guess that's on you. I guess it's on me, actually. But what are you going to do? So thank you for hanging out, everybody. This was fun.